Social Studies 20-1, Daily Source Analysis. Source number one, theme of the week will be World War I. It's important we keep doing these sources, even though schools shut down. You'll be writing the diploma next year. This is a skill we really need to build on to get you ready. So I'll give you a few seconds to read over the source. Hopefully you've already downloaded it and take a look at it, but I'll give you a second or two to take a look. So 1910, think back to the notes we were looking at yesterday. Think about the climate, the atmosphere of the world, especially Western Europe leading up to World War I. You were supposed to generate 3 words that would have described that climate. Maybe you pick tension, unease, mistrust. Any of those would work. Talks about the momentum towards war. That they recognize that a war is for sure coming. It was pretty obvious by the early 1900s there was going to be a major global conflict. The last big wars fought in Western Europe before this would have been the Napoleonic Wars of the early 1800s. So it's been 100 years since wars were fought on that kind of a scale. I'd think back to the notes regarding the long-term causes of World War I, expansionism. Maybe you talk about the Moroccan crisis, the Fashoda incident as showdowns between dominant European powers that almost led to World War I but didn't quite percolate into it. That would give you that momentum, that push toward war, that recognition that there's going to be a major war coming up. Maybe refer to the scramble for Africa and how European countries are scrambling for territory, land, and resources. Sooner or later, that will bring them into conflict. You might talk about the alliance system. I mean, you don't forge an alliance unless you want security from something. Maybe an aggressive nation, maybe war itself. So for sure, the alliance system would generate a momentum toward war. Talk about the German desire for great power status and how after German unification, they sought territory resources and wanted to join the dominant European powers. That would give you that momentum toward war. What else do we have? The Schlieffen Plan was a military maneuver intended to invade France. I mean, to design a military maneuver makes war inevitable. Militarism, the buildup of standing armies, of dreadnoughts, ships, etc., the bulk of money spent on military increase would generate a momentum toward war that you might want to point out as you take a look at that that source. And then finally, just the aspect of nationalism itself. I mean, this is the era of profound, raw nationalism, a love for your country, willing to fight and die defending your country. All of those things together would give us that momentum toward war, the recognition that war is certainly coming. Um, Admiral of the British Royal Navy talking about how they're preparing for war. They talk about it. They think about it. They're even hoping for war. They want this to happen. And then you get the other side, the German chief of the German general staff declaring that war must come. This is something we need. The sooner the better we get this war. And so it's pretty obvious by 1910, and probably even sooner than that, that there is a desire, a hope, a want of war. Um, I guess that was the climate at the time. Um, Very positive. So when we think of war today, it's something we don't want to happen. It's always conveyed in a negative perspective. Different time back then. War is positive. It's something that you wished for, something that you wanted for. A German novelist talking about the significance of war, um, the great virtues of humanity. Fidelity is loyalty. Patriotism is the love of your country, your readiness to die for an ideal. To die for an ideal would mean to die for your country, to die for your country's ideology. And so these new virtues, these virtues of fidelity, patriotism, and so on, are triumphing over uh, trading and shopkeeping. In other words, to this person's thinking, Western Europe had fallen into uh, a lackadaisical pattern of acceptance of a day-to-day meager existence, trading and shopkeeping. All people are worried about is profit, making money, going to work, running your store, running your business, and so on. According to this author, this war would cleanse mankind from all of these impurities of drudgery, of boredom, of innateness. And then finally, as this war gets closer and closer, it gives us a chance to do something glorious, something to get us out of this prosaic age. Prosaic age would be an age of boredom, of something unchanging, monotony, something that you would not look forward to. So the writer toward the end of the source is advocating war as a means to shake Europe out of its slumber and finally do something good, do something just, do something that is right. So in terms of linking this to the principles of nationalism, I don't really see ethnocentrism. I mean, maybe a bit. I mean, maybe your ideal could be ethnocentric in nature. Your way of living is better than someone else's way of living. So I guess you could make it work, but it probably wouldn't be my first instinct. But for sure, I see foreign policy. For sure, I see expansionism. For sure, I see alliances. I don't really see isolationism, although maybe you could say that Europe is being shaken out of an isolationist era in which they hadn't been involved in war and conflict for over 100 years since the Napoleonic Wars. So those would be the links that I would be going after. I guess when you get right down to it, what the source is contemplating and pushing forward is profound nationalism. In fact, I would say that this source is advocating ultra nationalism. Nationalism is when you love your country. Ultra nationalism is when you love it so much you want to impose it on someone else, on another culture, and other people, maybe even take over another country. So for sure in source one, I see ultra nationalism alive and well, which will help trigger World War I. In terms of perspective, I see someone who is out and out embracing nationalism, embracing it so much that it's becoming now ultra nationalism. And one thing you might point out is that we have the benefit of hindsight. We realize what this kind of thinking is going to culminate with: war, death, etc., etc. At this time, he probably can't see that coming. So he's just, you don't know what you don't know. And he doesn't know what this will culminate with. We do. And perhaps you want to criticize the source from that lens. Probably we've done enough. I can't think of anything else we'd want to add to that source. I think we're in good shape. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for tomorrow's source. It's going to be a cartoon. Again, the theme is World War I.